'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause we care for you. You're there for me too, my friend. I know it's hard sometimes when you feel left behind. Tell me what's on your mind. Why do this on your own, yeah? 'Cause I'll be there for.
Hello, welcome to Johnny's Chats. I'm here with Archie Mcdonald, musician. How you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah. Good. Glad to be here. A little bit nervous and excited, but it's good. You're making me feel very welcome. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Bear with me. I'll switch this off. Right. And yeah, good. Right. So let's start off. Let's start off with a bit about yourself, a bit about your journey through what your journey through mental health, what your mental health state is like, and a bit about it, like for the listeners, you know.
Okay. Cool. Well, I suppose I went to South America on a gap year after school, and that was an interesting process. Basically, I lived with a family out there,
Yeah.
a South American family, and I didn't really speak the language in Spanish when I got out there, and so I found that quite difficult to sort of feel connected to another family, another culture, and I think that was probably the start of maybe you know not feeling connection, maybe even a bit of anxiety and stuff, and I also did ayahuasca out there in the jungle, which Gabor Mate, a Canadian psychologist, talks quite a bit about, and that was kind of it's an hallucinogenic you know drug. If you I call it a drug, I wouldn't call it a drug, but
Plant medicine.
yeah, plant medicine, and that was a really great experience. I think I learned quite a lot, and what I took home was just that I want to kind of I suppose be part of my family, make them proud, and quite a lot of other things about just life and experience. So the whole thing about South America, doing that and the culture, and then I came back and went to university year one, and in Plymouth, and I think I felt, because I've been out of the loop for 6 months and in a different country, you know, I kind of felt maybe a little bit confused about getting straight back into work and with a different culture, English culture again, um, and I basically was bored and started to gamble, basically, and for me that an addiction quite quickly. Now I'm not sure exactly why I started. I think it was probably just a bit of fun, and just a bit of boredom. But it
Those,
quick,
yeah.
it quickly came like a real issue. Had anxiety, weight loss, hair loss, anger, depression, and it was a really difficult time, to be honest. Um, in terms of other mental health stuff, like there isn't many drugs that I haven't tried, to be honest,
Yeah.
or mind alternating stuff. And as a side note, I think that when we research these mind alternating substances, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that sometimes in the right setting, um, consciously, they can actually really help you. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
MDMA, for example, was used in relationship therapy in America. Ketamine is actually used for, as an antidepressant in America, and it can actually fire new synapses. Uh, Mushrooms can actually regrow brain cell growth. Now, I'm not saying for anyone to go and do these without, considering them a lot, and in a very safe environment.
And with the right sort of guidance and everything.
Exactly, yes. Because obviously that there are horror cases where people have done things like, for example, mushrooms, and not being aware of their surroundings and falling off cliffs.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so I think it's a really interesting one. Yeah.
Definitely. That's something we could talk more about in a bit. Well, how would you say gambling as in filling a void sort of thing, and how addiction can be sort of like us trying to fill a void that we weren't really, well, probably not even aware of, but you know, it's sort of like, yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, so Gabor Mate, again, the Canadian psychologist, which I love, he goes, basically, in childhood, as a child, we have things that happen that shouldn't happen, and things that don't happen that should. And basically, we should never blame our parents, but what we can do is, if we can become more aware, hopefully we can do a better service for if and when we ever become parents.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I suppose it would be about self-esteem, and maybe, you know, certain inputs in my life weren't that good. I suffered from dyslexia, so as a kid, I found it very hard to organize. I'd be losing stuff. I wouldn't understand certain things, and, you know, sometimes my parents would get angry about that. And
Yeah.
as a child, um, you know, apparently as a child, all you can do is to take back the control, is to believe that it is your fault. Because if you believe it's your fault, then it's like, well, maybe you can do something about it, or it must be your fault because this situation is happening. So if you have an angry parent, you know, coming down on you, someone who is technically, when you're a child, it is God, because they're bigger, stronger, everything to you. It can be a real tough time. So yeah. Also, I mean, I even read the other day that a lot of overweight men and females can have half of them have suffered, you know, sexual abuse. So, you know, it's not so much what we, for the gambling, for me, isn't the issue, in the sense it was me not feeling good enough, and not feeling clever enough, or whatever. And that was the outcome. That was the consequence, I suppose. But then when I got into the gambling more seriously, then obviously that addiction would have its own issues. I'd get angry because I've lost money. I'd get too excited because I'd won some, but then I'd go back and lose it again. I'd forget to eat. I would isolate. You know, I put a lot of strain on my body, wasting hours and hours, you know, doing this. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. What did you do? Well, obviously, like the way you're explaining it is that you're not addicted to gambling anymore. So what did you do to get over that, and what support methods did you use to maintain it still?
Yeah, well, I went to Gambling Anonymous,
Uh-huh.
which is a good foundation, and I did that for probably 5-6 years overall. I haven't gone back there recently, but I think that's a very strong thing that can help. But I also would say be wary of who you meet in these groups, and because someone like me, maybe I had a bit of a blind spot, and I maybe naively tried to do business with another gambler, and it turns out that he was probably not only a gambler, but more of a sort of sociopath, you know, a little bit narcissistic, where unfortunately his wound was so bad that all he could do in life was to try and rob and steal to feel important, I suppose, or to feel adequate, to feel okay. So you've got to be wary of things, your circles, and trying to be aware. So yeah, Gambling Anonymous. For anyone who's interested, there's GamCare, which is, I think, associated with the National Lottery. I did hypnotherapy. I did 2 sessions of hypnotherapy, which really helped. They basically allow you to picture your life you know, to picture yourself doing the gambling for say 20, 30 years and where you'd be. So I pictured my future self, you know, on a bench, broken, poor, hungry, depressed. And that's kind of like try to get the image of the worst outcome. And the worst outcome is addiction, you know, a loneliness and basically death at the end of it if it really gets that bad. So I think that was a really good one for me. In terms of like, I would still say I'm addictive. I have an addictive personality.
Yeah.
And even with technology, you know, sometimes I've got to notice, right, I've got to have a day off the technology because the technology is using me. I'm not using it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and even with this whole TikTok thing and everything, there's a thing now called technological Alzheimer's, which is basically people. It's just messing around with our brains, and we just keep flicking, and we're not even getting reactions. And we need bigger and bigger reactions to feel something. Same with porn on the brain, which you know, I try to avoid because I know it's not good for the brain and its responses. It reduces everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, what else? Having a mentor or someone who can hold you accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
For doing things it is really good because you know, I could tell myself the things I think I need to do to live a happy, healthier, more successful life. But you know, it's hard for me to discipline or tell myself all the time, and having someone else to talk to about that was a real good thing. I also did 2 years of therapy, which again was good. And what else? Meditation. I did 10-day meditation, silent retreat, Vipassana.
Yeah. That's good. We've lost you there, Archie. The camera's gone off.
Have you? Someone is ringing me, but hopefully they'll hang up. If I click decline, then maybe.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. So you've looked into a lot of different methods in order to get over that and get yourself to better places. Fair play to you. The first step's being aware, then obviously once you are aware, reaching out, and then everything, and then follow the course. You know, like, you know, start implementing the good habits and go from there. When we were talking the other day, you were telling me about we can tie this into talking about going back to the ayahuasca as well. Is the book that you're reading on tribal cultures and how it relates to modern day society. There we go, that's the one there. Yeah. Would you like to explain a bit about what that's about, sort of thing? And we'll go from there.
It was basically about a dude who was depressed for a long old time, and he went to the doctors, and they just basically gave him drugs or antidepressants, and he was on them for 10 years. And so he went around the world just trying to explore why people are depressed. And it's a great book, but the general consensus is that you know, you're depressed because maybe something in your environment is not right. So maybe you don't have a sense of community. I was watching a video on Dizzy Rascal the other day, and he said, you know, he was living in a state and it could get quite grotty. You know, there could be problems, anger, addiction, you know, fights, whatever. But he said that living in a council estate in London, that sense of community was what, even though there was rough times, a sense of community held him and his mates together. And and I think in the UK we've become very individualistic, and there isn't that sense of community, which I thought was really interesting. What else?
What do you feel would be a way of tackling that and getting people to go back to that community spirit, almost that sort of like that, going back to our tribal instincts and getting back and knowing our neighbours, knowing everybody in our streets, you know, that real community feel that even like it has developed like that now, but our grandparents' generations, they all knew everybody on the street. Like they all went to the pub every night. It was a social thing, you know. Everybody was still very much connected. It's almost like through technology, we are more connected, but we're losing that sort of part of real connection, you know, physical connection, like socializing and that sort of stuff for looking at it on a screen. Do you see what I mean? Like, there's a lot of advancements, but we're leaving behind certain aspects of what really makes us human.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, you can feel really lonely, and you can go on your Facebook and realize there's 60 people online that you could talk to, but you may have not spoken to them for a year or two or months, and it'd be a bit random just saying, hey, how are you? I'm feeling great, or I'm feeling shit, or whatever. So in that sense, there is a real lack. I suppose one of my he also talks about advertising and psychological warfare in the sense that the media needs to basically needs to make us feel inadequate or worthless in order for them to sell products. So even for me as a young guy, I'd lost my hair, and as I was going in on the train, there'd be an advert about a bit in big, about, oh, get your hair back, for example. Wayne Dyer, for example, is an interesting guy. He just said, like, never think you're less for the way you show up in life, and for who you are, and in a sense, the women have had the pressures of the media for the last 50 years, and now, as men are becoming more metrosexual, by that I mean more concerned and more promotion on their looks, now we're getting that media focus, and probably realizing the effects of not feeling great, being judged on looks, feeling insecure, and even with my mentor, I was talking about this, and it's like, well, yeah, some things I don't have, some things others don't have, but when you actually focus on the bigger picture and what you want and what you want to give, for me, maybe sharing my message of music or trying to make connection that way, or spiritual songs, it's really insignificant. But with this constant bombardment of media, you may need to look in the mirror and say, I love myself, or if there's something you really can't accept, then you may need to decide that you want to change that. But I would say, even before people get sort of cosmetic surgeries or anything, there should technically be a psychologist that you go to in order to see, are you all right, and is this what you want, or is this something deeper? And I believe a lot of the time, or half the time, or whatever, it could be something deeper. And so yeah, I think, that was a few points on that. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. 100%. Now, going back to what you were saying about your experience with ayahuasca, now that's hallucinogenics and the use of them for medicine and like helping people, like psychological problems and all that, has been used, like, for example, where did you go into in South America?
I actually went about 12 years ago now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they've been, the indigenous peoples there in the jungle and what have you, like, you probably know yourself, is they've been using these plant medicines since forever, and using them because they believe that when somebody starts experiencing mental illness like depression and stuff like that, it's a calling for them to become the next healer or the next shaman of their community. So they get taken into the rituals of the ayahuasca, of how to make it and all that sort of stuff, and go down the process and the training for it, so to speak. And so like for people out there that maybe, because like what we're taught growing up, I remember being at school and having a drugs talk, and the one that stuck in my mind was when they told us about LSD, and like that's something else we could talk about as well after. But they basically put the fear of God in us and said, like, you know, if you ever take this, you lose your marbles, sort of thing. And, like, you know what I mean? And said, like, told us horror stories about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's like sort of like what the this society's image has been created of what psychedelics, like the use of psychedelics can be. But obviously, from your own experience and from mine as well, we can say, well, would you like to explain a little bit about your experience and like how it made you feel after, sort of thing? And
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, the ayahuasca was a very beneficial kind of feel good, euphoric kind of trip, but also quite deep and introspective. I have done mushrooms and LSD also. I think LSD, is potentially a bit more risky in a sense, because it's synthetic. It's a chemical,
yeah,
whereas mushrooms or psilocybin is natural, and you can kind of control the dose a bit more.
yeah,
But in answer to your question, there have been times where I have taken a mind alternating substance, whether that even be ingesting mushrooms, or even ketamine, for example, even drinking even occasionally, and and MDMA occasionally, and I kind of feel the day after or so you can feel completely almost reset,
yeah,
like
yeah,
your mind has been reset. But back to the consciousness thing, it's not good if you're at a party and you're drinking and mixing
yeah,
suppressed alcohol with then other drugs, and mixing all them, and
yeah,
to a frenzy with friends and stuff. And usually if you're not in a peaceful mind, then that's when the ego can come out, and then there can be arguments and a lot of pain and stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's all about how you use it. It's using it, not abusing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, well, thank you very much, Archie, for coming on and telling us your story, and really appreciate it. And yeah, that's all we got. Is there anything you'd like to say at the end, like my words of wisdom for anybody out there listening?
Yep, sure. I just say, some people need a lot of excitement in their life, and there are ways of getting it. But if you can find healthier ways of getting it, like climbing or any sort of extreme sport like that, or pushing yourself. We all push ourselves in different ways, and we make an influence on others, whether actually we like it or not.
Yeah.
So I guess if you can just be the best influence, then hopefully it will come back around.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, fair play. Right, I want to stop the recording now. And
Okay. Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate the chats.
that's cool, man. That's cool. My pleasure. Right, see.
'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause we care for you. You're there for me too, my friend. I know it's hard sometimes when you feel left behind. Tell me what's on your mind. Why do this on your own? Yeah. 'Cause I'll be there for you, my friend. 'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too. Oh yeah, there for you in the end.